If your baby or toddler has a lower requirement for sleep than other children their age, or what we often refer to as low sleep needs, chances are you've noticed early on. Maybe your little one would only catnap when other babies at parents' group were taking 2 or 3 hour naps. Or your little one might go to bed quite late and wake super early when other babies or toddlers are sleeping a full 12-hour night. It can feel really isolating when your baby or toddler has a lower sleep requirement than others, simply because your little one won't neatly match up with any of the age based advice that is so populous on the internet. But should you be worried? Well, in this episode, we're going to unpack what it means to have a low sleep needs baby or toddler, how to know if your little one is getting the amount of sleep they truly need, and how you can manage their lower sleep requirements across the first few years. Welcome back to Brand New Little People, the podcast companion to the Sombel Pediatric Sleep Clinic programs created by us. I'm Dr. Fallon Cook, and I'm here with Dr. Laura Conway. We are PhDs and sleep practitioners and co-directors of Infant Sleep Australia. Laura, my goodness, haven't we been busy lately?
We sure have. Oh my goodness. I just think, someone said to me the other day, how's it going? How's Infant Sleep Australia going? How's your business going? And I said, do you know what? It's like when you have one baby and you think, I am so busy. I can't imagine ever having more children than this. And then you have your second child and you think, oh my goodness, I thought I was busy before and now it's just all over the place. And you went on to have a third child. So, and I didn't, I stopped. So
It's a circus.
Yes, a complete circus. And it feels like that with work. We are just so busy. But it has just been so energizing trying to work towards having more sleep practitioners available and fully trained so that they can start to see some of our clients and gosh, it's just been wonderful and really a great experience, but we are running on fumes at the moment, aren't we?
We really are. It's kind of a pinch point because we know that parents have been missing out on appointments because the wait times have been pretty crazy, and we're so grateful that we are, in hot demand, which is phenomenal. But we have such high standards that we were so nervous for so long to let anyone else come in and work for us because we were like, no, our families, we want everyone to have the absolute best. And then we've just had two incredible people come knocking on our door. Like, I really want to work for you. And these are people who listen to the podcast and really got to know our approaches and were like, I work in sleep and I love what you're doing. And can I please come join you?
Yeah.
And that's been phenomenal. So we have Lauren and Kat, who are both starting in the next few weeks. And they are just so, we have put them through their paces.
Yeah.
Like, they are so highly trained. We have been really giving them lots of supervision and observation opportunities. And they are just absolutely phenomenal. And I'm so excited for parents to be able to have their support because they're just two incredible women.
Yeah, definitely, with their own children as well. And, so they've been through what a lot of our listeners have been through. And I think having that lived experience is just so valuable in this space.
Yeah, it really, really is. And I just love that we're going to have this, this kind of team to be working with. And more people for our clients to meet. And I think what's really, going to be so valuable as well, because we have such high standards of our clinics, is that, now we're going to have, for any new client that's coming to see us, any new family, they've got a whole team watching over them. There's a whole team meeting to talk about what's happening for this new family. What do we best do to support them? I mean, like, that's just so cool to me because so often when, we've got kids, we go and see health professionals and, we know what it can be like. We know what you're looking for as a parent in terms of the kind of support you want from any practitioner that you're dealing with. And I just love that we're continuing to uphold this really high standard of care so that, yeah, all families can feel really well supported. So yeah, if you love the idea of coming in to visit our clinics because you like the idea of having appointments with us where we, just work together, there's going to be increased availability coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And normally there is quite a wait list. So yeah, if that's something you're interested in, probably keep an eye on our social media calendars, accounts rather, because we'll be
Yeah.
posting on there when our newbies get started.
Yeah. And of course,
Exciting
remember
times.
everyone that I'm not sure we've spoken about it too much actually on this podcast, Fallon, but we have opened the Children's Sleep Australia clinic. So we are now
Mm.
seeing children aged 4 to 17 years. So we are really covering the whole of childhood now. And so
Yeah.
if you have older children, or you have nieces and nephews who are older and you know that they're struggling with their sleep, then visit Children's Sleep Australia, and you'll be able to seek support, evidence-based, sensible sleep advice for
Mm.
primary school age children and high school teenagers too.
Yeah,
Mm.
because it's so, there's a flood of people working in baby and toddler sleep, but just so few people who can help you with the sleep of children and teenagers.
Mm.
So yeah, really excited to be entering that space. It's a whole new world and very
Mm.
exciting. And so I'm just so glad that we finally are letting some people in and building that
Yes.
team. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to be really exciting to see how that all goes over the next little while. We have a really big favor to ask our listeners. So here goes. we know that so many of you absolutely love us and you send us these incredible reviews, and we are so grateful for that. What we're desperately needing right now are video reviews. So if you're the kind of parent who is really happy just to, turn on your phone camera, say a few words about what you love about us, whether it's our clinics or the Sombal programs, that is gold for us. It
Mm.
really helps other parents that, there's so much conflicting advice out there. It helps parents when they can hear another parent say, yeah, this is what I was going through and this thing really helped.
Mm.
So if you have time to do that, we will just be eternally grateful. So please,
Yes.
please, if you want to do it, please do it. Shoot us through an email, sombal@infantsleep.com.au. Would be so grateful, wouldn't we, Laura?
Yeah, we would. And then the purpose of those videos would be to use in social media and on our website, so that
Mm.
it's just spreading the word. For so many of you listening, as Fallon says, you send us emails to say it's been life-changing, and how
Mm.
your days have improved 1,000-fold since understanding what your child's unique sleep needs are and making changes based on those and using our settling approaches. And there's so many families still out there floundering, not knowing where to go.
Mm.
So if we can use those lovely words of yours to help signpost the way to us for other parents, that would be really wonderful. So do give it a thought, and if you're happy to do so, please do make that recording
Yeah,
and send it through to us. That would be wonderful.
it really would be. Wow, let's dive into this week's topic on
Mm.
low sleep needs and how you don't need to panic if you've got a low
Yes.
sleep needs baby. So, this episode was requested to me last week by a lovely mum that I saw in our coaching call clinic, who was just sort of saying, I just need to keep hearing that it's okay if they've got a lower sleep needs. And I
Mm.
just need that to be, kind of repeated in a way because of all the misinformation online and, all this scary sounding stuff about what happens, if babies don't get enough sleep. And I thought, yeah, it's actually, and I remember saying to her, I was like, you're probably going to hear that episode pretty soon, actually, because I'm often just like, what are we going to talk about this week? So it was quite perfect. So I hope that mum
Yes.
enjoys this episode. But maybe we'll start with, what does it mean when we say low sleep needs? And when I sat down to really think this through, I realized that we haven't established like a really set criteria here. We just kind of have an idea in our own minds about what is a little bit less than typical for different ages. So I would say, and these are really just rough guides, but less than 12 hours for a little baby is pretty low. pretty low sleep needs if they're getting less than 12 hours per 24 hours. For
Mm-hmm.
older babies and young toddlers, I'd say it's more like less than 11 hours. And then as they enter sort of the older stages of toddlerhood, maybe 2 years plus, less than 10 hours is sort of towards the lower end.
Yeah.
But I think that's really important to know that it doesn't mean there's something wrong if your baby's total sleep requirements seem a little lower than average.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be that variability. I don't know why it's gotten so out of control actually online, just this idea that, all the babies have to have a huge amount of sleep. It would be a bit like if we were saying, well, all the babies have to be very tall.
Yes. Yeah.
Or they all have to have really big feet. It
Yes.
doesn't make sense to think about it like that.
No, it doesn't. And there's, I will often describe to parents that it can be helpful to think about sleep needs in the same way you think about height and weight. And when you take your child to see the nurse and for the checks across the first few years, the nurse is weighing your baby and then telling you what percentile they are on. Are they off the chart? Are they 95th percentile for weight, or are they on the 5th percentile, or are they just at 50th percentile? And parents very quickly become attuned to knowing that their child has always been at the high end of the range for weight, or the low end, but they're not concerned because the nurse has said that they're progressing okay. And so it's similar for sleep. So we wouldn't be saying every child needs to have 15 hours of sleep when they're 4 months old, in the same way we wouldn't be saying that every 4-month-old baby should be 3.5 kilos. It's just it's totally meaningless to say that. But there would be the average weight for a child that age, in the same way that there's the average amount of sleep for a child that age. But you're going to have children falling on either side of that, and some are going to fall quite far from the mean, from the average, and some are going to fall closer to the average. But as long as they're functioning well during the day.
And we're not sitting there going like, oh no, that baby at parents group is 3 centimeters longer than mine, and I've really got to try and get them that little bit longer.
That's right. Yeah, we're not saying silly. That at all.
And that's sort of what it's become with sleep. So let's talk about how the term low sleep needs came about. It was really a few years ago now. We started to use this term because we noticed that parents kind of kept following these age-based schedules. And obviously for some parents, they'll just work fine. But for some, they absolutely were not working fine. And they were obviously, a lot of the time completely disastrous. So if you've got a schedule, saying that babies need to have several really long naps every day, low sleep needs babies just can't keep up with that. They just don't need that amount of sleep. But what we were really noticing was that no matter what these parents tried, their babies would still stick to roughly the same average total sleep per day. It just might change when they're having that sleep. So if you keep pushing for a really long lunchtime nap, well, they might eventually do it. But it's not going to be more sleep overall necessarily. No. It's usually not. It's usually that they'll take a little bit off the night. So we're seeing a lot of babies who are starting to do great long day naps, but then having atrocious nights. And that's what sort of made us go, some of these babies with low sleep needs can't handle that. And we actually need to think about making parents think more about how they want to distribute the amount of sleep their baby seems to need across that 24-hour period. So if you've got a lower sleep needs baby, you probably don't want to aim for huge long day naps, or you're going to be up half of the night with them.
Yes. I think that is so commonly seen in the clinic, where parents will say, their sleep has always been terrible, but we've managed to get the day naps under control, but it's just the nights that we need help with now, or the other way around. Their nights are fine, but it's just the day naps we need help with. And
can you make them nap longer?
Yeah, can you make them nap?
How short do you want the night to be?
Yes. And obviously this is on the back of the really old school notion of sleep begets sleep, etc., where the idea that you need a child needs to nap loads during the day, and that's going to improve their nighttime sleep. And then Yeah. Then there's all the stuff that comes from the previous generation telling you that type of
Yeah.
information. So yes, I think absolutely fun. I just wanted to jump in and say that, because what you're saying there is how we then look to say, no, it's the distribution of the sleep across a 24-hour period. It's not
Mm,
trying to get a baby to sleep this amount during the day and this amount at night. It's a distribution of their sleep need across the day and
yes.
the night.
Yeah, and I think the
Mm.
reason that the whole sleep begets sleep thing just keeps being passed around, and even by some pretty leading organizations, has to do with just a misreading of the sleep science. Because I really feel like a lot of people are having a quick look at the literature and going, okay, well, babies who have great long nights, some of them have great long day sleep. So maybe that's the key. Like, if they
Mm.
have a lot of day sleep, they'll have a lot of night sleep, without thinking those babies just have a huge requirement for sleep. So they've got to do
Yes.
it at some time. They're going to have great
Yeah.
day naps and great nights because they have to sleep that much for their unique need. It's not
Yeah.
that having big long day sleeps leads to better nights. And that's how I personally think it's come about. And I'm glad that we
Mm.
can look at that scientific literature and go, oh, come on, there's more than one way we can interpret this.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think it's really important, just because when we started to consider sleep requirements in babies, the settling side of things just absolutely came along in leaps and bounds, because that was when we really started to realize that if we aren't considering what a baby's unique sleep requirements are, and we're putting them down when they're not tired yet or haven't sort of built up sleep pressure in their system, you are going to have the most horrendous time trying to settle them, even in your arms.
Mm.
A lot of parents will say, oh, it doesn't matter if I hold them or bounce up and down or whatever. They just will not sleep for hours. So
Yes.
optimizing that daily rhythm around the sleep needs is just game changing for
Mm.
so many families. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done around that and really helping spread that word, because now I'm seeing people using these terms that we use all over the place. Like, it is
Mm-hmm.
really spreading like wildfire. I think a lot of people in the sleep space have been like, oh, that's an interesting idea. They try it and go, holy crap, this works really well. This
Yes.
is really important. And I'm really proud that that information is getting out there. We're seeing, a lot of sleep consultants talking about low sleep needs, which just makes me so happy. The tide
Yeah.
is turning just little bit by little bit. It's so
Yeah,
good.
absolutely. Yeah, because it is so hard for
Mm,
parents who have babies and toddlers who do have low sleep needs. In a
mm,
society which just is telling them that they're essentially telling them they're doing something wrong and they're not getting their child to
mm.
sleep as much as they should, and that's going to have detrimental
Uh,
effects. It's just awful
yeah.
for them. So yeah, I'm
Yeah. You end
delighted
up
that we
so
can.
racked with guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's really important to talk about. I mean, look, there would be people who listen to this going, nonsense. When I did this, my baby started sleeping more. Of course, there will be babies who aren't getting enough sleep,
Mm.
or who simply need more sleep but can't get that sleep, because it could be that there is a sleep association that's actually really impacting their ability to get a lot of sleep.
Mm.
Um, there can be other variables at play, of course. So when you do work towards your baby's unique sleep needs, if things are going well, you're always going to be testing and trialing a bit more sleep
Yeah.
in their day, just to see if they ever do have that little bit more. Because we do have some science that suggests there is a really small group of babies where over that first year their sleep requirements might slightly increase. And it might just
Mm.
be the resolution of some early feeding difficulties or something like that means that they can, start to get a little bit more sleep. We don't fully understand it yet, but for that reason,
Mm.
we're always cautious and we'll always try and add a bit more sleep back in, just to test things out and see, what is the maximum, a baby can manage.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
what I think probably one of the biggest questions I get, Laura, and I'm wondering if you hear the same, is parents saying, but how can I be really confident that they're truly a low sleep needs baby? Like, how would I know if they're just chronically not getting enough sleep?
Mm.
Um, what advice do you give to families who express those sorts of worries?
So, what I ask them to do is to describe how their little one is behaving during the times that they are awake in the daytime,
Mm,
and thinking across a whole awake period. Are they happy and content for some of that time, and probably for a fair amount of that time. Can they
Mm.
make eye contact with you? Can they, if you're feeding them, are they taking on food? Are they looking at their toys? Are they engaging with people around them? And if they're getting cranky, which we all get cranky as it is getting close to our sleep time. So at what point after they have woken up are they becoming cranky? Is it just in that
Mm.
last short period of time, in the lead up to nap time or bedtime? Well, that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah,
That's
it's
actually
totally
expected.
normal.
Yeah.
Mm.
But if they are cranky for most of that awake time, and we often use the word cranky, don't we? It's just so it's
Mm.
cranky, upset, whingy, clingy, can't be put down, generally just
Grizzly.
unhappy, grizzly, miserable. I'm thinking of all the adjectives that parents use in clinic. Then there is a chance that they are not getting all of the sleep that they need.
Mm.
And then
But
I'd
you'd
be
see
going,
that,
yeah, you go.
yeah, and you'd see it across the day. Like really
Yeah,
normal if that last wake window, they're just grizzly and over it. They
yeah,
might be like that for that whole last evening period, especially, for younger babies. But
yeah.
yeah, a really chronically tired baby will just be unhappy almost all the time.
Mm,
You'll know.
yeah.
You will really,
Yeah.
really know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the other signs is that if you try to make them sleep more, they just simply don't.
Yeah.
Like if you're thinking, are they low sleep needs? Try adding more sleep in and see where you get to. If they do it, well, great. But so often parents will be like, they'll show me months of sleep diary data, and they'll be like, we tried this, we tried that, we tried this, and I'm like, and look at it, they've just sat on 11 hours, a little bit up and down, but for months.
Yeah.
Like, there's your answer. You've tried all these things. You've tried to get them sleeping more, but they won't. They might, yeah, have a longer nap, and then they take a bit off their night, and it just kind of keeps working out like
Yes.
that. So that's another big clue. But I
Yeah.
think parents should always check. Like, it's always good to be thinking, is it possible my baby needs more sleep but they can't for some reason? Like, so
Hmm.
you would see all the crankiness and grisliness as well. But I would be, if this is, a real concern of yours, have a think. Are they snoring? Are they doing
Mm.
other strange breathing during sleep? Are they gasping, spluttering, suddenly waking up with a huge intake of air? Doing a lot of mouth breathing. These can be signs that there's, a physical problem going on that could mean that they're not able to get all the sleep they need because that's constantly waking them up.
Mm.
Or if they're having settling difficulties that make it really hard for them to get enough sleep. And by that I mean, if your baby has some really complex association, maybe they've got to be fed and bounced, for 25 minutes before they fall asleep.
Listening
How
to a
realistic?
particular Mozart um,
Yeah, yeah.
piece of
Yeah,
music. Yeah.
particular song, or yeah, then if that is so complicated and takes so long, is it actually plausible for them to get more sleep, particularly overnight, if that's what's required after every sleep cycle? Like, that could start to chip into how much sleep they're able to get. So
Mm.
if you notice, yeah, the snoring or breathing issues, or there's some really complicated sleep associations going on, that's worth working on.
Yeah.
Because certainly sometimes when babies become really good at just independently falling asleep in their cot, sometimes they do manage to get an extra sleep cycle in there per day. Not always, but
Hmm.
sometimes they'll just get that little bit more sleep. And you just always want to, test that out and see if it is the case that they can do it. And I'd also be cautious too. You're going to see people online who say, "Oh, this child was getting this, low amount of sleep. We did all this, often it's a pretty hard and fast version of sleep training, and now they're having, this huge amount of sleep." Actually, I see this in babies who come out of sleep school too. They in sleep school environment, they're encouraged to have lots and lots and lots of sleep,
Mm.
and then parents say, and this is what you won't necessarily see in the reviews and testimonials and things for those services, is that often parents get home from sleep school or they finish up with whoever they were working with, and it just does a complete backflip. They have
Yeah.
had maybe a few days to a week of a heap of sleep, and then they spend a few days to a week getting hardly any sleep because they've just gone so over quota that now they're coming under quota, and then they'll
Mm.
just kind of go back to that middle ground again. Um,
Yes.
So, yeah, that's another thing to consider, is that you want to make changes to your child's sleep that are lasting.
Yeah.
So the best way to do that is just to look at what are they averaging with their sleep, really aiming to
Yes.
cater for that. Yeah, I hope that gives parents some reassurance and guidance as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I hope so. If you are seeing a pattern of, maybe three really good nights where they're achieving 13 hours of sleep, let's say, in a 24-hour period, and then you have 2 or 3 days and nights that are terrible and it's dropping down to 10 hours, and then it goes
Split
back up
nights.
again. Yeah. And I sometimes think about it as either a roller coaster that you're riding, or this pendulum swinging backwards and forwards. And then parents are thinking, oh, this is when they're having that really high amount of sleep. That's what I'm aiming for. That's what they really need.
Yes.
But actually, no, it's not, because then it swings the other way, because their body does this like auto correct and then swings completely the other way. And then their child is having a really small amount of sleep, which is why then we go, do you know what? What's the average?
Yeah,
And
let's
the
bring it to that
average,
midpoint.
let's bring it to
Get
the
some
midpoint.
predictability.
Yeah. And we try and stop that pendulum from swinging. And then we go, yeah, your child is a low sleep need child, but we can take away the very, very low days and the very, very high days. And let's just try. We
Yes.
accept that your child has a lower sleep need than average. And then we cater for it. And then it just stops this swinging.
Yeah. And if we're wrong, you'll always test it out. So
Yeah.
if you're like, no, I'm so sure that they actually need 14 hours, well, start out with the average, work towards that. And when things are going great, keep adding in more sleep and see what happens. If it works, sweet, you are lucky.
Yeah.
But you might actually go, oh yeah, the more we try and push more sleep, the trickier the settling gets, the more broken the nights are, and you realize actually it's easier just to stick to a predictable pattern. It's such a good discussion. I find we talk about this so much in clinic, so I'm really happy to get it into a podcast episode so that more families can listen to it. If some of this is ringing bells for you and you're thinking, oh my gosh, is that what has been going on for my baby? They're definitely a pendulum baby. That is our specialty. It is our cup of tea. We live and breathe looking at unique sleep needs, looking at sleep diaries, figuring out what's going on with the circadian rhythm. And really optimizing that so that we can make any changes to settling as easy as possible. And boy, when you hit the nail on the head with the timing side of things, the settling can stun parents. Often babies they adapt so easily.
Yeah.
So we can help you with that either in the clinic or in Sunbell if that's something you're struggling with. Terrific. Okay. Well, shall we dive into some parent questions, Laura?
Yeah, let's go. Shall I read the first one?
Yeah.
So Jade has written in, and Jade has a 12-month-old who wakes early for the day, despite tightening his daily rhythm. He's got an 11-hour sleep need. So here we are. Here's a low sleep needs.
Yeah, on the low side.
Toddler, yeah. So just tightening the daily rhythm shifted his wake up time from just after 5 to about 5:40. They can't quite crack that 6 a.m. So he has 2 naps a day, one from 10 till 11 and another half an hour one at around 2:30. His bedtime is 8:30 and they're hoping for a wake up of around 6. So they're wondering if it's time to move to one nap or if they should stick with the current routine for a bit longer.
I would be checking if there's a few signs that your 12-month-old is ready to drop to one nap. So in Sunbell, it's in there, the sort of signs and things you can look for, because it certainly might be a big part of the equation. It might just be that sometimes it's not even... I often say to parents, sometimes we combine that total day sleep into one nap and the night just stays the same. Nothing much changes. But sometimes it's just so much longer awake and they're so much more tired by bedtime that sometimes they do manage to get a little bit more of a sleep in. It's again, it might not mean that they suddenly sleep more, but sometimes it does for some families. So It could be worth a try, just to
Hmm.
see if that helps, but always be checking, is there anything at all happening at that time of morning that tells your baby it might be time to get up and start the day? So
Mm.
if you want a 6 a.m. wake up, keep it dark until 6 a.m.
Hmm.
Don't offer the first feed of the day until 6 a.m. Turn all the lights on at 6 a.m. Yeah, and I'd be seriously thinking about dropping to one nap reasonably soon. I'd say it's
Mm.
probably going to help.
Yeah, yeah. Given that they found that tightening up the daily rhythm already led to changes, that
Mm,
probably is the main reason that your little one isn't quite making it till 6.
yeah. All right. We have a question from Alexia who says their 6-month-old is an early riser. Another one.
Yeah,
Theirs wakes at 5 a.m. Oh, ouch. I could not
yeah,
deal with this. Hats off to you.
yeah. It's horrible.
5 a.m. is hard. So Alexia says at 5.5 months, he had about a 12.5 hour sleep need. He was
Hmm.
consolidating his night sleep since he started Sombal, so that's great. So he went from having 1 or 2 night feeds and now just has no night feeds or maybe one on occasion.
Hmm.
But now he's consistently waking after 9 hours of sleep. Alexia is wondering if 9 hours is enough for his nighttime sleep or if he needs 10 or more hours. He takes
Mm.
3 naps a day. Two of them are 35 minutes long, and then there's one that's about an hour 20. He does these in the pram, although they are using the slow fade approach to encourage independent settling during the day. He settles independently in his cot at night. Well, that's great. Alexia is wondering whether they need to adjust the day naps, work on independent settling for the naps, or do something else to help him sleep for more than 9 hours at a stretch at night. She says the 5 a.m. start does not bother her. Wow, she must be a morning lark too.
Yeah.
But she just wants to be sure that he's getting enough nighttime sleep.
Yeah, Alexia, it sounds like you have come on leaps and bounds, and having those really good stretches of sleep overnight must be doing you all the world of good. There are some babies, we haven't spoken about this in a while, Fallon, have we, who do seem to be these 9-hour babies, where
Mm,
they will just do a 9-hour stretch overnight, and it seems very hard for quite a few months to get them to do more than that. It's sometimes we try everything that we possibly can, and they just continue to, no matter what, only do 9 hours overnight, and then we just have to make sure that we're offering them enough daytime sleep to meet their sleep needs. When we just kind of say, well, we just have to accept what we've been dealt, the cards we've been dealt with at this moment in time, and we do 9 hours overnight and adjust the day naps accordingly. I am wondering, Alexia, whether what we could probably look at trying for your little one is moving him to. Sorry, I was just looking to see what the pronouns were, and I think it is
yeah, it's
him.
a boy.
Um, Moving him to 2 naps a day. So he's 6 months old.
Mm,
So it may be that he's actually just starting to get ready to move down to 2 naps from the 3 naps. Now he's only just turned 6 months, I think. So you might want to give it another couple of weeks since you're okay with that 5 a.m. wake up. You might want to just see, since it's only been a recent thing that you've been able to get things just so, and those 5 a.m.s don't bother you. You might just say, do you know what, 9 hours overnight is fine. I'm just going to push a bit more sleep into the daytime and keep him on the 3 naps. But probably as he's getting 6.5 months, 7 months, I would say moving him to 2 naps a day is probably really going to help and give him the best
mm,
chance of getting that extra hour or so in the nighttime sleep. But I don't think there's nothing wrong, Alexia, with him only having 9 hours overnight. It's about him meeting
mm,
his sleep needs. So if you're worried that he's not, if you're worried that he should be having more nighttime sleep, I don't want you to be worried about that. If he's generally functioning well, coping well, happy, as we've just talked about during the day, and is napping well during the day, then I think just be really pleased with the progress that you've made, Alexia. It sounds like it's good.
yeah. The only other thing I would add is you might find with a little push to do a bit more practice with the independent settling that then at 5 a.m. when sleep pressure's getting pretty low, they're kind of running low, you might find that he's, better able to get himself back to sleep with that lower sleep pressure. So yeah, definitely he's at an age where, if he's independently settling at night, maybe do a little bit of more of a push with it, just for some of the day naps, if that feels manageable, because sometimes that can really help to kind of knit everything together.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're doing an awesome job, Alexia. Fantastic.
Okay, we've had a question from Carmen, and Carmen's implementing a new daily rhythm for her baby to create a 12 and a half hour daily total with a 6:30 a.m. wake up, an 8 p.m. bedtime, and 2 hours of daytime naps. So she said that she's noticed that since they've started to use this new daily rhythm, his sleep needs have changed from between 12 and 13 hours total to around 11 hours. And she's worrying that he may be missing sleep that he needs. So she has some questions to ask about what to do when the daily rhythm isn't working. I think I'll just read them all out and then maybe we can
Yep.
take them as a whole. So Carmen wonders if her baby wakes up for the day 30 minutes early. So she's aiming for that 6:30 wake up, and I think often he's waking up at 6. Should she add that extra time to the naps or move bedtime the next night earlier? And likewise, if the baby naps for less than the 2 hours that they're allocating to day naps, should she move bedtime earlier? And what to do if after a rough night where there's lots of wakes and resettling, should they adjust the naps or bedtime the next day to make up for what Carmen calls lost sleep?
So the short answer to all of those questions is no, preferably not.
Yeah.
If your baby has a really bad night, a tricky night, a short nap, the day's a bit out of whack, try not to go and adapt the schedule, because you're kind of saying to the circadian rhythm, sure, wake up 10 times overnight, or wake really early, or take a tiny nap, because we can work with that. We'll just have a bit more sleep later on. So that can just keep a whole lot of drift and wobbliness day to day that just doesn't resolve. What we're better off doing is trying to be reasonably rigid with that daily rhythm, just at first, to help your baby really get into that pattern. So their circadian rhythm goes, oh, if I'm awake lots overnight, I've still got to get up on time. I've still got to get through the day. That just puts that little bit of pressure on their system to try and make sure they're sleeping when we want them to be asleep. So I would try to keep that fairly steady. But the other thing I want to, just something that Carmen mentioned, was that drop in sleep needs, where it was about 12 or 13 hours and it seems to have dropped to around 11 hours. That's nothing to worry about. So often when we go to change the daily rhythm, or change how we settle a baby, or just make any big change in a baby's life, often what we see is that total sleep they're getting is going to drop off a little bit, just because there is all this change. Circadian rhythm is trying to figure out, like, whoa, what's going on? And then once they kind of fall into that pattern, it comes back up to where it was again. So if you see a temporary dip, you don't need to worry about that. It's probably fine. And also, just these poor parents, there's all these different factors to consider. But babies' sleep needs are gradually reducing over time as well. And it might just be that you've had a real dip, a big dip in sleep needs all of a sudden. They're all on their own little pathway. So just keep an eye on it, see what happens. If you're finding that it's sticking to around 11 hours and your baby's really happy and coping fine, well, that might just be their new sleep needs. So you just adapt that daily rhythm to fit that. Anything you'd add there, Laura?
No, I think that's a perfect answer, Fallon. You might find, Carmen, that if your baby just continually is waking up at 6 a.m., that actually just becomes the new wake up time. Because you might then see, well, this is his sleep need has dropped to, let's say it stabilizes at 11 and a half or 12 hours. Then he might just have an earlier wake up. We can't make a baby sleep more than they need. Just keep on persisting, Carmen. Let us know how you get on.
It's such a good point. We really can't make them sleep more than what they need.
No.
All right, we had an email from Sam, who has a 2.5-year-old who recently had their tonsils and adenoids removed, and they're still recovering. Sam says sleep has become more challenging, and Sam thinks this is likely due to pain, of course, and changes in her sleep needs and separation anxiety. It's a really good point, actually. Hospital stays often really do trigger separation anxiety. Sam says their toddler has started trying to climb out of her cot and they're unsure if it's time to transition to a toddler bed. Sam
Mm.
also asks whether to adjust the sleep schedule now or wait until recovery is complete. And they're wondering how to support their child without creating unsustainable sleep associations. Oh, I love
Mm.
this question.
Yeah, it's awesome. There's quite a few things to cover here. So well done for identifying that there were some challenges around your toddler's sleep, the breathing whilst they were sleeping overnight, Sam, and following up on that. That's awesome. Whilst your child is recovering from that surgery, they will need more sleep. So I would be thinking, I wouldn't be going in too hard and trying to get back onto the sleep schedule that they were on before surgery. I know in Sam's email there was a longer email, and she said that her toddler had gone up to needing 15 hours sleep in the days following surgery, which was much higher than what she was on previously. So I would just be monitoring that pain and the recovery. Kids do generally bounce back relatively quickly, but hopefully your surgeon has given you some indication of time frame. But I'd be thinking at least a week before you start trying to revert to the old schedule. Just as a rule of thumb, would you add anything else to that?
No, I
Fallon?
think that's dead right. I wouldn't be trying to change the schedule too much until you're feeling confident that the pain has stopped and they have fully recovered.
Mm.
But I hear Sam's concern around, the toddler's starting to climb out of the cot. They're thinking, oh, it might be time to go to a toddler bed. And how do they support them without creating unsustainable sleep associations? I think for a lot of parents whose toddler's going to hospital, that is a real fear because you're thinking they need more of me right now. They need more
Mm.
comfort. They've been through something pretty massive. But you're like, oh, I don't want to end up having to sleep in their bed or them sleeping
Yeah.
in my bed. Or what would you do, Laura? What's your advice?
Well, I do know that in Sam's longer email, she said that her toddler has managed to, on 2 occasions, flip herself out of the cot and
Oh, no.
has been caught. So she wasn't injured, luckily. So given that she's actually done that twice, I would say it's definite you need to move her into a toddler bed because she's
Yep.
flipping herself.
Oh, and you don't want a broken arm. It
No.
happens all too often.
Yeah, they get those corkscrew breaks in the arms. Yeah, so you don't want that. So yes, in this instance, I would be taking the side off the cot and turning it into a toddler bed. And then I'd be thinking about whether you put a mattress beside the cot or the now toddler bed to support your little one just as she's recovering, and do your best to not be. You might just sit on the bed on your mattress next to her bed, rather than like cuddling her to sleep or pulling her onto your mattress to go to sleep. So try and keep it as independent as you can, while still staying with her so that it then doesn't develop into an unsustainable sleep association, which is what Sam is concerned about. So, potentially if you were to lie on your mattress and you take the side off her cot, so it's a toddler bed, you might be patting her all the way off to sleep as she lies on her mattress. And if she tries to come over onto yours, just keep popping her back and patting her or rubbing her back as she goes to sleep. And then as she recovers, then withdrawing the amount of pats or back rubs that you're giving her, and then start to perhaps use parental fading to leave the room once she's better. So it's just a very temporary measure that you're staying with her while she's just getting over that hospital visit.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. It's just giving just enough comfort that they can get off to sleep without kind of, going too sort of far, too far off course.
Yes.
So that
Yeah.
then when she's feeling a bit better, hopefully things will come together nice and quickly for you, Sam. Good luck and do reach out if you need a bit more support.
Yeah. All right. We had a question from Emma, who has an 8-week-old baby who seems to have a 14-hour sleep need. So just a little one. She's having 3 naps a day. The first two are often 2 to 3 hours long. And then she has the third nap, which is, I guess it must be a bit shorter than that. Emma is breastfeeding on demand and does not yet have a clear daily rhythm. She writes that her baby does tend to sleep for a 4 hour block once I get her to sleep at night, which ranges from 8 p.m. ish to anywhere up to midnight, depending on her cluster feeding that evening. So she is wondering, and there's 3 questions, but I think, again, I'll just read them all out at once. Is it
Yeah.
normal for a 2-month-old to have such long naps? Should she be waking the baby to manage the nap length and create more structure in the day? Or is it okay to continue with a more on-demand approach for feeding and sleeping? What do you reckon, Fallon?
Yeah, it's totally fine to keep going with that kind of on demand approach for the feeding and sleeping if that's feeling manageable for you, Emma. At this
Mm.
age, they can have, yeah, like you're describing, a huge 4 hour variability in bedtime. And that can just be how it is for an 8 week old baby. And if that's
Mm-hmm.
not a problem for you, you don't have to rush into changing anything. If it feels challenging and you're thinking, gosh, I'd love to start having a bit more predictability, then sure, you could start to tinker with that daily rhythm a little bit. It might be that maybe the naps are a bit too long and we start to dial them back just a little bit so that you're
Mm.
getting a more consistent bedtime that's a little bit earlier in the evening. It's fine for your baby to have those long naps, but again, it's just thinking like, is that working really well? Because if you're finding the nights are really hard, that could be something you tinker with. Wake her up a
Mm.
little bit earlier from those naps, just to help you get a bit more predictability in the evenings, because your baby doesn't have a fully developed circadian rhythm yet. They're reliant on you to show them this is nighttime, this is daytime.
Mm.
So if you're just very much led by them, they won't just, well, some will, but a lot won't just fall into an earlier bedtime and a typical kind of wake up time. They do kind of wait for us to show them,
Mm.
yeah, when nighttime really is. So yeah, there's no pressure to change anything. To having, 3 day naps that are longer is completely fine. Most babies that age tend to have much shorter naps, but it doesn't mean there's anything wrong if those naps are longer.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think you're in a great position, Emma, where you can just decide when you feel ready to make changes and go for it. Then you certainly don't need to rush into it if you're not feeling like it right now.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, and we
Good.
have another email from Rebecca. And Rebecca actually sent a really wonderful email. I wish we had the time to read it all out,
Oh,
Fallon.
thanks, Rebecca.
Really lovely, kind words. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. So Rebecca's 18-month-old transitioned to 1 nap. And since doing that, had begun sleeping really well overnight. And sleeps about somewhere between 10 and a half and 11 hours total. Might have 1 or 2 brief wakings in the night. So all was going well, but then in just the last few weeks, he's reverted back to taking 2 naps, especially at
Hmm.
daycare, with the first nap happening only 3 or 4 hours after waking. So Rebecca is asking, why might he be sleepy so early and reverting to 2 naps again? And could it be a problem? Or is it okay as long as the night sleep remains intact, which it is at the moment, and as long as she continues to cap the total day sleep? This is an
Hmm.
unusual one, isn't it, Fallon?
It is. So it's not necessarily a problem. Like you could just look at it as, well, if his night sleep's staying on track, then maybe that's okay. You're okay with sticking with 2 naps a bit longer. At that age, though, I feel like it's probably not going to stay okay. Like it wouldn't
Mm,
surprise me if in the next few weeks the nights start to get a bit more challenging if those 2 nap days are happening more and more often.
mm,
So yeah, just watch what happens. And if anything's a bit off with his sleep, I would just really try and push him through on just the 1 day nap, because it's certainly age appropriate to just be on one.
mm,
But I would there's just a little niggle in the back of my mind, thinking, well, he's suddenly getting sleepy earlier in the day, and is it possible that there's a physiological reason for that? So if you have noticed, Rebecca, that he is snoring during his sleep or has the coughing, gasping, spluttering in his sleep, anything unusual with his breathing, that could be that he's not getting good enough sleep quality because he's being woken multiple times overnight.
Mm.
You'd want to go and see your GP, get an ENT to check him out, because that could be causing that excessive daytime sleepiness.
Mm.
Or if there's been any other health changes, physiological changes, chat to your GP just to rule that out. But yeah, overall, I'd say it's probably not a problem, but it might start to impact those nights. So if the nights are wobbly at all, I'd be saying to daycare, look, please just stick to the one nap, push him through on it. He will adapt to it. He will be okay.
Yeah. And Rebecca, if you have to go back to doing one longer nap at daycare and then he has a 10-minute nap on the drive home, a little power nap in the car, then as a transition point to get him back onto one nap, then so be it. But, just for a couple of days. Yeah.
Yeah, good. All right. And Sarah emailed in about her 9-month-old who's been sleeping well overnight, sleeps from 9:30 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. with no wakes, thanks to some bell and coaching calls. Oh, lovely. Well done, Sarah. That's fantastic. Oh, must feel good.
Yes.
Sarah says, however, recently she's shown separation anxiety at daycare and during naps. She now cries for 30 seconds to 5 minutes when put down to sleep, but still falls asleep independently and sleeps through the night. They'd previously used the supported accelerated approach, which worked really well, but now they're wondering, should they start sleeping in her room, or can they continue with the current approach and let her fall asleep on her own despite the brief crying, since she's still sleeping well at night and handling naps?
Yeah, Sarah, I think that it's a brief answer that basically she's still sleeping well. It's very, very brief that she protests for when she goes into the cot. So she's not becoming overly distressed, which is what we might anticipate happening if it was really severe separation anxiety. She would be really inconsolable. When you leave her at night, she isn't. So I would just carry on doing what you're doing. And if it's only 30 seconds or a minute or two, it's nothing to worry about. She's still able to calmly go off to sleep, and then she's resettling herself multiple times overnight when she has her normal night wakings, and isn't upset that you're not there, isn't calling out. So there's nothing that's really telling me that you need to change anything about the settling. And hopefully this will just that little bit of crying that she's doing at the start of the night will just be a little phase that will pass. If you really are finding it hard to listen to, then you could always look at just sitting in her room or by her door as she falls asleep, just to see if that gives her a little bit of reassurance and gives you a bit of reassurance too. And sometimes it does, but for other children, it actually leads to an escalation.
Yeah, they're like, you over there, come over here now. And, come and help me go to sleep. Yeah, don't just sit there doing nothing. Yeah, it really can sometimes just make them furious, can't it?
Yeah.
So I think that's really good advice for Sarah. Yeah, hopefully she'll move through that pretty quickly. You'll be off and away.
Yeah, good. And we've had a question from Louise. She's purchased the toddler program and she's about to start logging sleep in the sleep diary. And she's just a bit unsure about whether they should allow their toddler to nap unrestricted during the day or whether to continue capping their naps as they have been doing.
Yeah, so with the sleep diary, just keep doing whatever the usual is what I say to parents. So you don't want to suddenly uncap the naps because we know that might have a disastrous impact on their nights.
Yeah.
Just keep doing whatever it is you have been doing. Keep the pattern that they've been on when you're keeping the sleep diary. Yeah, we do get questions about that quite a lot. So it really is just a case of just staying the course for those, that week of tracking their data. Don't change anything.
Great. I think we're down to our last question now, Fallon.
Lucky last.
Lucky last from Maddie. And she's wondering when to drop from 3 to 2 naps for her son. Now, I'm not sure actually how old Maddie's son is. I know over 4 months, maybe 5 or 6 months old. And what he's doing at the moment is 2 30-minute naps, and then he has a longer hour and a half nap in the afternoon. goes to bed somewhere between 7:30 and 8 at night, wakes up at 7. And what Maddie describes is that now, when they're putting him down for those shorter naps in the morning, he's sometimes waking up after only 20 minutes, sometimes even less. So he's not even getting a sleep cycle in for those naps. And she's wondering, she said, we're trying to extend his awake time beyond 2.5 hours to maybe 3 hours. And he's still waking 4 times overnight, needing to be resettled. Sometimes he's having a feed, at least one feed overnight. So Maddie's really after some advice about how to improve the nighttime sleep and to improve the naps during the day, which are becoming quite inconsistent.
So there's a few things that jump out at me. There's a few signs there that it sounds like Maddie's baby's probably ready to go to 2 naps. From about 6 months of age, it's pretty typical for them to drop to 2 naps. And the fact that he's not really getting through a full sleep cycle makes me think he's just dozing for a bit and then springing awake. So probably low sleep pressure, maybe didn't really need the nap if he wasn't able to do a full sleep cycle. There's also the longer nap looks like it's the last one of the day, and that can often make things a little complicated too. There's 4 overnight wake-ups in there, which is, if he is around that 6-month mark, that's a lot. It is kind of tricky. And he's not spending a lot of time awake. So if he is 6 months, we're kind of wanting that last wake window to be 3.5 hours or so awake before bed. So I suppose to think about how we would improve that schedule and consistency, I mean, certainly look at what the total sleep is that he's typically getting and start to look through the daily rhythm charts to kind of see if there's something similar to what he's currently doing. I would be thinking it might be time to drop to just 2 naps. You'll probably see a really big difference, but I understand that can feel hard when you're struggling to keep him awake for a couple of hours at a time. But what you need to know, Maddie, is this. When babies have a tricky night, they wake up on the back foot. They find it really hard to get through the day. They kind of want to doze a lot. They can be crankier. So they seem like they need more day sleep. And we try and give them more day sleep, but then the next night's tricky and it just kind of keeps snowballing. So it might be a case of, even though it feels really hard to keep him awake, being a little bit brave, working out what that daily rhythm needs to be and really trying to push ahead with it and push him into that pattern so that he's getting some better nights, because you're not feeding excessively overnight. We want to see those nights improve. He'll wake up more refreshed and he'll hopefully find it easier to get through the day. That's probably the best advice I can give, not sort of knowing the specifics of his age and his sleep diary. But if you're needing more support, Maddie, you could be a good candidate for a coaching call so that we can really dig into the daily rhythm and figure out what the best approach is.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. I think that's great advice. And hang in there, Maddie. It may just be that you think to yourself, what type of things does my baby absolutely love doing during the day? Does he love going outside and, in his pram looking at the cars going past? Or does he love looking at the leaves blowing in the wind? What is it that he likes to do? And when you're then thinking, okay, I'm really going to try to encourage him to stay awake for 2.5 to 3 hours, this awake window, I'm going to go and do that. That's the thing I'm going to do to try and distract him and keep him awake for a little bit longer, and know that then that will mean that he's more likely to build up higher sleep pressure, which means he's more likely to do at least a sleep cycle for you, which currently he's not managing to do for his naps.
Yeah, sometimes babies just need that bit of massaging of that daily rhythm to really get them into a good groove. So good luck with that, Maddie. Well, thank you to all the parents who have sent in fantastic questions. It's been really fun answering these questions this week. I've really enjoyed it. Like we asked earlier, if you are a parent who isn't too camera shy, who would be happy to just, point the camera at yourself, talk about your experiences in Sunbelt, if you're happy for us to, use that in our website, social media, that sort of thing, it is such a terrific help, because we know that the parents who feel lost in the quagmire of misinformation get a lot of comfort when they hear another parent who's been through something similar and who has emerged out the other side. It is super helpful. So if you would be able to do that for us, thank you so much. Just email us at sunbell@infantsleep.com.au. If you love our work, maybe you're too camera shy, you could always buy us a coffee instead. I'll put the link in our show notes. If you would love to buy us a coffee, we would love that because we love coffee.
Yes.
And other ways you can support us are to leave a review, to subscribe to the podcast. If you see our posts on social media, give them a like, give them a share. And of course, if you're struggling with sleep and settling, we have an amazing sleep clinic. You can get so much support directly from us. We have the Sombal programs, and if you're a member of Sombal, you can have coaching calls with me. We have so many different ways that we support families, so please don't feel like you're alone. If you want some support, reach out and grab that support because it is life-changing. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we're grappling with school holiday schedules at the moment, aren't we, Laura? So
Yeah,
we think you'll hear from us next week. We will see how we go.
Yeah, we're
see
doing
if the
the
stars
juggle.
align.
We're in the trenches too, people. Yeah. All right. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.